Morning Bananamators. Today I want to talk about learning how to learn. And I posted this on Twitter a little while ago. That was like last month. That was 2 weeks ago. But when you're learning any art, you will hit a point where you can see the thing, but you can't do the thing. That's the time to push harder. Your eyes have surpassed your skill. This is good, even though it feels so frustrating. Practice the thing and you will do the thing. So this is what I want to talk about because it is just true. Learning how to do any art, drawing, and animation obviously is what I'm focusing on here. It just takes time. And I had somebody get upset with me and they're like, you don't know what other people's lives are like. They're very busy and they don't have the time. And I'm like, I'm not doing this to them. I'm not saying this takes time so you can't do it to be a jerk. It's just that's how it works. I'm not fit because I don't put in the time. I can choose between walking briskly and doing some extra drawing in the mornings. And I choose to sit here and draw every morning. That's my free time when I have energy. In the evenings, I'm too tired to do anything, let alone run anywhere. That's it. The only time I have in my day really to put in a good solid hour is this morning time after I get my kid on the bus. So I don't get mad at the fitness crowd because I'm not putting in the time. I don't get to be fit. That's how it works. You don't put in the drawing time, you don't get to draw better. That's how it works. It's not a punishment. It's just reality. Everybody's bad at everything when they're born. We have this understanding, and school makes it worse, that you have to be good at something. And that's just not true. You don't need to be good at something to do it. I love singing. I'm not going to make you suffer by hearing me sing, but if quality police were real, they would have taken me away long ago for my karaoke driving time. Everybody's bad at everything when they're born. And nobody kicks a 2-year-old over and says, you talk terrible. You're not a good speaker. You're just garbage and you're never going to learn how to speak. But you say that to yourself when you feel like you're bad at art. You say you're no good at this and you'll never learn. And that's just a lie. That's just not true. If you practice, if you do the studies, if you keep trying, you will get better. Maybe you're like me and it's slow. I get better slowly, but my real talent, because I say I'm not talented at art because I'm not. My talent is that I will work like a dog to get better at it. I will find the hours, I will put in the hours, and I will get better through brute force. That's the only way I know how, is to just do hundreds of these. Some people learn better than I do. But having said that, this is not draw 16 hours a day. That's not necessary. You should absolutely have your sketchbook with you everywhere you go, because then you'll get into the habit of drawing as often as you can. When I was a more youthful person, I left the house, I used to go to the studio. I would spend sometimes 45 minutes on the subway, on the trains, and I had the opportunity to draw in my sketchbook then, instead of playing games on my phone or doing something that didn't help me achieve my goal. I would draw. Or if you're waiting in line at the bank, you got a little sketchbook, you could take it out, you could draw there. If you know you're going to be waiting for an hour, if you're waiting in a waiting room somewhere, that's time you could spend drawing instead of on your phone. These are the times where you can get the most little additions throughout your week, is when you can find those little moments, those 15 minutes. You're waiting for supper to be ready. Maybe your spouse is making some supper, or your parents make supper. You can sit down and draw for 15 minutes at the table and just have that little bit of time to just keep your hand moving. It doesn't even need to be something spectacular. You see these sketchbooks, like some people post these gorgeous finished sketchbook drawings online all the time. That's not necessary. You don't need to do that every day. You don't even need to do that regularly to improve. You can just do scribbly, scrawly gestures of your hand, of your dog, of things like that, and it's going to pay off. So while you're doing this stuff, what I want you to do, what I recommend, is whenever you're drawing, say you're just, having some fun, you're drawing at the kitchen table, you're having some problems along the way. You're like, I don't know what's happening here. I'm just, the hand, I'm going to put the hand behind the back. That I'm going to do the hair over one eye situation. We've all been there, okay? We all had those emo boy phase because we didn't know what to do. What you should do, okay, shoulders. So this is what you do. Shoulders, hands, face, symmetry. I don't know how to spell symmetry. I'm not going to put it down. Also, don't practice my spelling, as you can tell. So what you do is when you're just doodling and stuff, don't go while trying to get this working, okay? If it's not working, you do the best you can and you move on with your life. But make a note, always make notes of where you're struggling. You're like, when I'm trying to draw the face, I draw one eye and it's working super well and I add tons and tons of detail, and then I go to the other eye and it doesn't look the same. So we get this kind of stuff. And then once you have a list of the things that you're struggling with, you can attack those weaknesses intentionally when you study. So if you know that you're having trouble with this, start looking, like when you're going looking at these blogs and stuff, you can see what other people do. For example, getting the face symmetrical is about starting with the very simple parts of the face, getting it working in a very simple way, then adding the details after. Right? So you have to draw your skull, and depending on where you are in development, you will need to do much more construction. Maybe you have to start with a box even. You're at the phase where you start with your character's head in a box to get it angled. Here's that part here. And then we'll just make a very blocky figure. Maybe you're doing your Bridgman style studies like this. And then you can figure out where those eyes sit in the head. And maybe you have to forget to add a new layer. And you will start to find where those eyes sit. And then you can knock it back with your transparency and clean it up after. This is totally fine. Constructing as much construction as you need to get it done, that's going to be fine. The reason I can do this quickly by slapping face on there is because I've done so many of these and then so many of these, and gradually I was able to see that stuff. Now, when I'm drawing a head, I imagine the box in my mind, and then I put the character's head in the box, my imaginary box, and I draw it. Now, if you can't imagine your box, you must draw your box. That's fine. Like the way, like, just because I can draw this without drawing a box doesn't mean you need to, or that it's better to be able to do it without it. Some people need the box. Someone like Kim Jong-gi has a much better memory for this stuff, the visual memory, to be able to see this stuff in space, and then he just draws what he sees. But that's not how, it doesn't just show up that way. This is how we get there, one stage at a time. And you're going to get real frustrated at times when you see this stuff, when you know that your perspective is not working, that your head construction is quite like clunky, and you need 100% of your brain. This is your brain. 100% fundamentals. This is where you get frustrated. And we'll go back to this graph. I love this graph. Amazing Effects Animator. Go check out their Twitter. I love it because your technical ability is always improving. And even if you take time off, if you take 6 months off for, personal reasons, for health reasons, things like that, you're not going to lose a tremendous amount of technical skill. You'll get rusty. Your hand-eye coordination will kind of seize up a little bit. Like an old bike hasn't been used in a while. But once you get going in there, you oil up your joints, you're going to be catching up really fast. It's just like somebody taking 6 months off running. They will be able to get back into it after a few weeks with relative ease, whereas someone like me who hasn't run since high school, it's going to take me many, many months, maybe even a year to come close to what they're doing when they're rusty, right? Same thing happens with drawing. Taking days off, it doesn't diminish your skill. You don't lose skill. The skill is in your brain. You might lose the things that you're trying to learn, but you're not going to lose the stuff that you have learned. All right, that stuff is permanent. It's in there somewhere, and it's just about getting your arms warmed up again. But along with your technical skill, you have your ability to see, which is also improving, and your perceived technical skill. So I love this graph. It's so good because your eyes improve faster than your skill. You will hit the point where you realize that something like this is happening. You're not able to tilt the head in space. Like you see that people are doing it. All of your characters are this exact pose with hair over one eye, something like this, and very, very straight. We all went through that phase where all our characters are just standing stock still, and maybe you put the hands in the pockets to hide them. That's a normal phase to go through. Then you start doing the fundamentals. So the first thing you want to do is see the fundamental. You want to see that perspective exists. And for animation, you want to see that those principles exist. Timing, arcs, spacing, the principles, the fundamentals. That's where you learn anything. First, you can see it, right? So you can see that if you tilt the box, and then put the head in there, that you're able to build on the perspective of that box to create a tilted head. You can see it. Then you try and do it, and it's a hot mess like this. It's a hot mess. That's okay. You just have to do tons of bad drawings like this, honestly. You just keep putting in the time, keep forcing yourself to try it. Draw 3 heads a day, 5 heads a day, different tilts, and that's enough. Eventually, it's going to start sinking into your brain, and you're going to free up some mental space. 50% of your brain is fundamentals, 50% fun. 50% of your brain can be used for thinking about what you're drawing and how it looks and like the idea phase. And this is when you're really having fun. This is these peaks. Your perceived technical skill is higher than your ability to see, and you're having a great time. You're inspired. You have inspiration at these times. When you're in the highlight, the up times, this is inspiration. It's these times, the low points, that you have to be aware of, first of all, and fight through. And that doesn't mean fight by drawing 62 hours a day. It doesn't mean giving up your work. It doesn't mean taking time off. It just means you know you need to learn a thing. Maybe it's perspective, maybe it's anatomy, maybe you need to figure out what the bones are doing under this face before you can really tilt it. Maybe you need to be able to draw a head like this, just a nice little boxy head. Drawing heads like this every single day, even if it's only 3, that's going to improve your ability to draw heads in space wherever you want them to be, just by drawing these little blocky heads. You just have to know what you're trying to improve and make efforts to improve it when you can. Obviously, someone who can put in 6 hours a day is going to improve at a faster rate than someone who can put in 15 minutes a day. That's not a punishment. That's just how life works. The more time you put into this, the sooner you're going to reach that point. For me, it takes a long time to learn something new. It took me forever to learn perspective. I could get the basics of it. Like the clinical drawing things to the vanishing points. I'm like, okay, the math of it, I understand. But internalizing that, being able to come over to this place where part of my brain is not being used just for the perspective, that took me a long time. And that's okay. You'll get there. You just have to keep going. And I promise you, eventually, it's going to sink in the back of your brain. You're going to get back to the inspiration point. You're going to get back to the high point where you are having fun again. But when you get down here, this is normal. It's normal to hit a point where you think that you draw worse than you did yesterday. And that means your eyes have grown. And it's awful. It feels terrible. You feel like you've gotten worse. That's how we all feel. And I love this graph because it keeps going. It goes off into the future. Okay, I am here with some of the things that I've been learning where I'm like, oh, I'm terrible at this. I've gotten worse at this. But I know from experience that that's just my perceived skill has diminished. It's not the reality of what's happened. I haven't gotten worse, and you haven't gotten worse. It's just that you can see more, and there's something new to learn. And the learning to embrace learning for the sake of it is really what's kept me sane all these years. Because if you think of learning as the fun part, learning is the point of all this, then it's a challenge every time something new comes along. You need to work out those shoulders. I've been doing tons of shoulder studies this year, trying to figure out how to get all these muscles and stuff working in a way that doesn't look like just weird lumpy things, because it's something that I need refining on. I've been working on the proportions of the face again, because found out I've been putting my ears on wrong this whole time. It's only been 30 years. But when you hit this point, that's when you go back to this list. Bring it back to here. The list you made of all the things that you struggled with, that's the things you need to tackle when you're feeling at your lowest, when you're right here and 100% of your brain is being used to figure things out. Go back to the studies. What is it that I've been struggling with? And because you made a list, you don't need inspiration. You need motivation, which is not always easy. I love Mel Robbins. I'll listen to her if I need a bit of motivation. She's like, just do it. And I'm like, yes, I agree. So find some motivational speakers and listen to them and be like, okay, motivational speaker, please provide me with your external motivation because I have none of my own, and get to those studies. And you will get back here. And maybe it takes you a quarter the amount of time. So I have to put in 4 hours a day. You only have to put in 1 hour a day, and we'll get to the same place at the same time. Everybody learns at a different pace, but just because you learn slower, it doesn't mean you can't learn it. I spent years in the rigging department because I wasn't good enough to work in the animation department. It took me time to get there. I put in the time and it got there. And you can too, whatever place you're in, if you just put in the time. And like I said, 15 minutes a day, 10 minutes here, maybe you've got 2 hours on Sundays, you put it in and you will get the results out. And when you feel super frustrated, when you're in the frustrated period and you think that you've gotten worse and that there's no point in doing it, you are getting better. That is a period of growth. And the only way to get through it is to just go through it with study. You don't need inspiration for it. And that's the key to keep going up this ladder. If whenever you feel frustrated, you just find the motivation, whether external or internal, and you do the studies, you will improve at the thing. I promise you. Can't promise how fast, because it's not fast for me. And I do this. I draw every chance I get. I've been doing these composition studies. I've been doing figure drawing, more composition studies, more composition studies, more composition studies. When you see someone like me who draws and the thing comes out and it was what I planned to do, the only difference between me and you is that I've put in the time already, because I've had the luxury of putting in time early on, and now my job is drawing, so I can draw all day long and then draw more at night. I just put in tremendous amounts of time. That's my secret. And it's not a good secret. I wish it was a brush. I wish there was a tutorial. The truth is, it's just time. But if you do it, if you put in the time, and if you focus fire, it'll go faster. If you have things that you know you're bad at, if you know you're bad at perspective, if you know you're bad at anatomy, that is such a good thing, because then you can fix that. You can learn the thing, see the thing, do the thing, learn the thing, and then you'll see a new thing. For a while, you'll have like a blissful period of inspiration, this time, the fun time, and then you'll get back here and you'll see the thing and you know you need to go back to the studies and learn more things. This is a lifelong process. I've been drawing since I was 2. I went to art school 15 years ago, and so I've had 15 more years on top of 4 years of art school to learn more things. And I still, my compositions, I want to get better at it. I still go back to the fundamentals. That's the secret. The fundamentals, no matter where you are on your journey, if you go back to the fundamentals and you relearn them, you will learn more. Just keep going back to them and they will hold you together when you don't have any inspiration. Just find the motivation. All right, I'm just repeating the same things over and over again, so keep going. You can do it. I believe in you. Like, share, subscribe, all those things internet people ask you to do, and I will see you in the next video.